What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is doing well today. So for this horror news update, as you can see from the headline, we talked about this particular film probably, I think it was within this last week or so. Happy Death Day 3 almost became a 3-part Peacock series. Is the movie ever happening? Now, I do have 2 articles that touches on this aspect of what this film or this additional sequel almost became, which, as it mentions here, a 3-part Peacock series on their streaming platform. But we've already talked about the fact that the 3rd film more than likely is not going to happen. And Christopher Landon already came out and pretty much said as much. But we're going to check out this article plus another one just to see if there's anything else in it that talks to this particular update. But I do know there was a massive following for the first 2 films, and it's been quite some time since we've had the 2nd film, and there's always been that question of, will we ever get the 3rd film? And again, Christopher Landon has come out and I think pretty much said it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And that's unfortunate, because I think this franchise, unlike many others, was a bit different. Had a bit of and I don't want to say completely new concept compared to other slasher horror films that we've seen in the past. However, when it comes to, again, films that aren't coming across as big budget, you have a lot of big actors, big actresses playing in it, and it's still widely successful. I'm surprised those types of IPs don't continue for at least a little bit to find its own conclusion, versus others where we're getting 7, 8, 9, 10 sequels to a franchise, and at that point you wonder, when will it ever end? But when we have a franchise that's kind of following within that, I don't want to say indie or independent, but again, not big budget, but it's making money, it has garnered a cult following and a fan base, you would want to bring them some level of a conclusion to a franchise. And I think that's where this one has missed the mark with not getting to do Happy Death Day 3. Whether that was a Peacock series or whether that's a final film. So let's take a look at the details of this article here. It's time for our annual non-update on the fate of Happy Death Day 3, which fans of the successful slasher comedy franchise have been demanding for the last 6 years. We've been talking about a potential Happy Death Day 3 for each of those 6 years, with the ball in producer Jason Blum's court. Unfortunately, he doesn't seem to want to play with it. Speaking with SFX magazine for the latest issue, Happy Death Day creator-director Christopher Landon reveals that while Happy Death Day 3 almost took a very interesting approach to making its way into our lives, the project has completely stalled at this point. And this was one of the quotes we had mentioned before in the previous update, but we're going to cover it anyways. I didn't write the script because I never want to count my chickens and get ahead of myself. But I was ready to go and start writing this. But then it was sort of like, it was weird, Landon explains. We had a lot of fits and spurts in terms of maybe we'll do it. At one point, they talked about it becoming a 3-part event thing for Peacock, which was kind of weird. Landon continues, I was like, all right, whatever it takes. But then it went away, and that was the last we've heard of it, which was years ago. It's been an interesting journey because both movies were financially very successful, so I think it's left us and a lot of the fans scratching their heads as to why we weren't allowed to make a 3rd. Landon adds, but I don't control the purse strings. I don't call those shots. That's entirely up to Blumhouse and Universal if they have an appetite or interest in it. So, and the rest of this kind of goes on a little bit, as you can see here if you're just looking quickly. And the article ends here. It just talks about the fact of how much money the last 2 sequels made, and then the budget that was applied to them. I mean, and you can't deny the fact that they weren't successful, but the fact that it's been 6 years since we've gotten the last film. I think the writing, in my opinion, the writing is on the wall. It's more likely not going to happen. And I think the only way they would have probably found a way to make it happen was allowing them to either do the film and release it right to Peacock on a smaller budget, or, as it mentions for this article alone, a 3-part sequel or series, like mini series, to put on Peacock, which I understand why that might be weird, but he could have taken it to the effect of chapters, right? Like chapter 1, here's like the first third of the movie, the second third, and the last third. where you are still delivering your movie. It's just now been cut up into 3 parts. I mean, at least if you go about that route, is that the route you want to go? Probably not. But if it's a way for you to complete your story, complete your franchise, and get it out there for the fans, maybe that could have only been the best way to go about doing it. But I mean, if you as the creator director haven't heard anything from the studio in 6 years, either they're not interested in it or they feel other IPs are going to bring them more money. I mean, I don't have a list in front of me to look at Blumhouse's and Universal's list of releases over the past 6 years to say, oh, they could have taken the money that, from these films that didn't do well or completely tanked and applied it here where they could have made money. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, but it is what it is. Again, my opinion, we're not going to get a 3-part series, nor are we going to get a 3rd film in this franchise, which again is unfortunate because you'd want some closure there. So we have another article that talks about this, which we're not going to go through this in detail. I just want to go through this just to make sure there's nothing else that's being reported on another site that we're missing out on. But as you see here, it's pretty much the same thing. Christopher Landon and Peacock talked about turning Happy Death Day 3 into a 3-part streaming event. And I'm not even really sure what they mean by event. I would just see it as, again, it's a mini series. It's a 3-part thing. You release like part 1, for example, on the first of the month, and then the next week, the next Sunday, you release the 2nd part until all 3 parts released in a month. Or if you decide to do one release for a month for the next 3 months, which I think that route would be absolutely stupid. You'd want to continue the momentum you have as people wanting to see that next part, not making them wait another month to see the 2nd part or the 3rd part. So let's just run through this real quickly here. Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You. Director Christopher Landon let it be known as soon as Happy Death Day to You was released that he had plans for a Happy Death Day 3. But while Happy Death Day had earned a sweet sequel by making over $125 million at the global box office on a budget that was just under $5 million, the 3rd film hasn't happened because Happy Death Day to You only made $64 million. That's pretty good for a movie that cost $9 million, but distributor Universal Pictures was apparently hesitant to make a follow-up to the movie that made so much less than its predecessor. Now, during an interview with SFX Magazine, Landon has revealed that Happy Death Day 3 almost happened some years ago as a 3-part Peacock streaming event. So we covered off, we didn't cover off on the numbers in the last article, but it's a good point. I still think $64 million off a $9 million budget is still very successful. And most studios would have said, absolutely, go make me a 3rd one. So the fact that Universal is turning an eye to that, biting their thumb, so to speak, at this is unfortunate. I would like to know who's making that decision, but in the upper, C-suite, so to speak, to say, oh, we put $9 million into this. We got $64 million back. So what? That's a $55 million profit. Oh, we don't. That's just pennies. We don't need to do that again. That's just such a risk. Now I get it. It wasn't the $120 million you made off the $5 million last time, but it's still, in most cases, that's still a nice profit to make. And the fact that you would turn away a potential, making the same amount of money or more is unfortunate. And it doesn't mean you have to say, oh, well, we gave you $9 million last time, here's $20 million. Just come back and say, hey, if you want to do a 3rd film, we'll give you the same $9 million we gave you last time, or we'll just make it around about $10 million. Go make the 3rd film, and that's it. We're going to call it a day after that. I think had they have done that, even with the extra $1 million, whether that makes enough of an impact or not, I don't know. I'm not in the movie business. I do think, though, that Christopher could have made an absolute killer third and final film for $10 million and could have easily made quadruple or more back from the box office on that because the fans have been wanting this. So it's an unfortunate thing that no one is seeing the writing on the wall for that from a financial perspective, that it's there, the fans want this, but it feels like it's another studio head or another someone, again, in that C-suite saying, yeah, we don't really care what the fans are asking for, what they want. This is what I want to do, what we want to do as a studio, and this is what we're going to put out, even though they may have had several movies that tanked and didn't make nearly as much profit when you compare the numbers. So So the rest of this just goes on to really talk about what we've already mentioned. I mean, this is the quote we just read off on the previous article. We already covered off on the numbers. And then this here mentions there have also been musings about a crossover between characters for Happy Death Day and another Landon slasher, Freaky. But Landon said that was just a fun thought that had been thrown around, and there is no treatment in mind for a crossover. Happy Death Day 3, Happy Death Day to us is the movie he really wants to make. So I hope he'll get a chance to make it someday, even if it needs to be a 3-part Peacock streaming event. But again, it's been 6 years. I don't think either one's going to happen. And if it did, I don't think the 3-part series is going to be the route to go, because I don't think you're going to garner enough new subscribers flocking to see that. Most people who really want to see that are going to sign up for a free trial, 7-day trial, if they happen to release this all at the same time just to watch it. And if they don't, and they spread it out across, let's say, like 2 or 3 months. You set up a brand new email account, get a new free trial, finish watching it, and then there you go. I mean, there are people that are going to do that versus paying a fee just to watch one thing and then cancel. So anyways, that's going to do it for this horror news update for Happy Death Day 3. Could have been a 3-part Peacock series for streaming. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. Definitely doesn't look like we're going to get a third film. Looks like even maybe Christopher Landon has already started to say, yep, what's happened, moving on. And it's an unfortunate event. So drop a comment in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Would you have preferred to have seen this as a 3-part series via streaming to at least get a conclusion to the franchise? Or would you have said, no, give me a full feature film in theaters, or don't give me anything at all? Let us know in the comment section. And if you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, we'll see you at the next one. Peace.